Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wessex Lounge at Gibraltar Airport. It's been a real pleasure to have the opportunity at last. It's been a real pleasure at last to open the Gibraltar Airport Tunnel. It is a particular pleasure to be able to announce to you today that the airport and tunnel access roads will be known as Kingsway Road, and the tunnel will be known as Kingsway Tunnel, and that has been approved by His Majesty himself today. It's been also a pleasure to be able to share this moment with Sir Peter, who was the Chief Minister at the time that the tunnel was commissioned. Some more years ago than I care to remember, we jointly opened this airport too, because he had commissioned it. The tunnel, of course, has taken much longer than any of us expected it would take to be built. Perhaps it's not a feat of engineering, but it's taken, in my time, almost a time of Sagrada Familia proportions. And that has been, no doubt, because no failure on the part of the workforce, but because of the attitude of the contractor. And one of the things I want to celebrate today is the work that we have been able to do together across administrations, from the GSD administration to the GSLP Liberal administration. Before we were elected, a contract which had been awarded had become litigious. And on the day that Sir Peter came to hand over, after we had won the 2011 election, he was very keen to ensure that we knew that if anybody tried to steal a march against the government of Gibraltar, or the people of Gibraltar, then the previous administration would of course step up to ensure that that didn't happen. And in the context of this litigation, there was a lot of work done, a lot of unremunerated work done by Sir Peter, by Joe Holliday, and by Nigel Pardo, supporting our own legal teams, ably led by Guy Stagneto, who I can see here, and Nick Gulado with Edward Corbett in the United Kingdom, to ensure that we prevailed in all of the stages of the litigation. So today I want to celebrate the work that has led to the delivery of this tunnel. I want in particular to thank the workers who have been involved in the delivery of this tunnel, and I want to thank my predecessor for his support in the context of the litigation. I also want to thank the engineering teams, the project management teams led first by Michael Gill and then by Hector Montado in the government. I want to thank those who have been on the ground, John Joe de la Paz, who I can see here, and Stephen O'Seal, and all of their teams. And of course I have to thank GJVS, who at one stage were taking on the burden of having to deliver the tunnel themselves if we were unable to come to terms with the contractor. A lot of the instructions that had to be given at this stage had to be modulated through me. And to modulate those instructions, the person who'd been financial secretary for most of that period had to come into my office, explain to me the latest stage in the litigation, and seek instructions. And that was Albert Mena, and very often when he was doing that, he had a face which simply said to me, "Si lo se no vengo," because this has really taken a lump out of all of us. But now it's a pleasure to be here, to be able to see the tunnel open and to appreciate the value that it brings. I was not a fan of this project when it was announced. I believe it was not necessary. But as the parent of boys who play football sometimes around the time of aircraft landing at Victoria Stadium and has been stuck halfway up Devil's Tower Road, unable to get to there, I now fully understand the value of this tunnel. This will aid traffic flow, it will ease congestion. And I hope, given the work that we are also doing now, I sincerely hope it will not be a tunnel to the north of the runway. It will be a tunnel from Gibraltar into Europe, into which we expect to flow very fluidly if we are able. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to celebrate the work that's been done across administrations. I want to celebrate the work of those who have been in the tunnel doing the work that they are doing, and I want to celebrate the fact that hopefully we won't have to wait anymore for aircraft to cross our runway or land on our runway. Tonight at midnight, the last vehicle to cross the live runway at Gibraltar Airport will be G1, and the first vehicle to go through the tunnel will be G1. And now, over to another G1.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's some time since I've done this, so bear with me. Chief Minister, thank you very much for your very generous gesture in inviting me to share this very special moment for Gibraltar with you. So, as the Chief Minister has said, Barcelona and Milan have their own cathedrals, their own iconic buildings that took a lifetime to build, and now we have our own tunnel. Hasn't taken quite as long, but as the Chief Minister says, the project was steeped in controversy from the beginning. There was a very complicated EU tender process. Then the first contractor that it was awarded to pulled out shortly after the contracts were signed. The next contractor that was appointed did what contractors in some countries, I'm told, tend to do, which is bid low, get the contract, and then apply the pressure to get more money out of the client. They picked the wrong client. Yeah. So we were very clear that much as work ground to a halt in the run-up to the then general election, we were very clear that we were not going to fall for that trick, and if the tunnel had to be paralysed, so be it. The reality was that, advised as we were by an excellent legal team, both in Gibraltar and in London, the contractor was sacked, not paid the extra money that they had not bid for, and everything else that you know now is history, with the complexities that the contract has involved. I think it's easy for us in Gibraltar to forget the extent of the infrastructural change that has taken place in Gibraltar in the last 30 or 35 years. And those of you that can remember that far back, just look around Gibraltar from the border fence to Europa Point and see the difference that successive governments have been able to make by investing in infrastructure. Whether it's schools or housing or airports or tunnels or whatever, compare the Gibraltar of today with the Gibraltar of 30 years ago. It's an unrecognizable place. And that is how successive governments have tried to spend the fruits of our collective economic and social success. And these projects, the terminal that used to be an unmentionable between the current Chief Minister and the previous Chief Minister, but happily no longer is, the tunnel, these have to be seen as major projects in the context. Either people can agree or disagree whether they're needed today or whether they were needed yesterday. But as I think my successor has discovered, you have to have a very long-term vision for these things. You're not talking about what you think Gibraltar needs today, but what you think Gibraltar is going to need in 15 or 20 years' time, and take the flak in the meantime if people think you've got the timing wrong. The jury remains out on that question, and it's not going to be resolved today. But I'm very happy that the government that succeeded in mine was committed to both projects, really, and many of the others, and I'd like to thank you for that, for continuing to have faith in this project. So, people, and this I'll stop now because I'm just remembering that people always used to complain that I used to speak for too long. So now I don't want to speak for much less. I think often in Gibraltar we have to do things because we're very small and we need people to have an impression of us. You know, so what people see when they visit Gibraltar influences how they come to think of Gibraltar, and on the back of that, whether it's the sort of place they want to invest in and be in. And the more prosperous Gibraltar looks, the less likely that others in other countries are likely to take the view that it's viable that our political futures might be dealt in this way or that way, as opposed to our way. So I would like to again thank the Chief Minister. There was absolutely no need or obligation, still less obligation on his part, to have included me in this ceremony, but I do want to acknowledge his generosity of spirit in inviting me to do so, so thank you very much.